So a couple days ago, I posted this poll on our YouTube channel, fully intending to go over the results in last night's video. As you may have seen, that didn't happen because Jack Sawyer had to do his little crybaby routine about Michigan versus Ohio State in 2022. Now, is Jack Sawyer actually a crybaby? I don't know. I don't really know a lot about him except when he was literally crying after the 2024 Michigan-Ohio State game. He might be a perfectly nice guy. I really don't know. He's a heck of a football player. I'll give him that for sure. I just think it's funny he had to wait until he got to Pittsburgh to get his gold pants. Then I had a choice today because Connor Stallions responded to his tweet, and it's an interesting response. It is. I thought that it actually opened the door for kind of an interesting in-depth look at college football signs and sign stealing and how do you call plays and whatnot. And I thought that might actually be a fun thing to get into. But the thing is that it's shrouded by the sign stealing allegations, and that's setting people off right now in a big way. So I kind of had to ask myself, do I want to get yelled at in my comment section again tonight? Or do I want to maybe just talk football? Which, let's be honest, somebody's going to see this video and say, you're an idiot if you think Oklahoma's the biggest test. Clearly, it's Nebraska. Actually, I think somebody in the comment section did mention Nebraska, funnily enough. So, whatever. Anyway, point being that I just didn't feel like setting off yet another firestorm in the comment section tonight. So we're talking about Oklahoma. But we'll talk about them in just a second here. First off, this is the Big Ten Team Rivalry Show. Thank you so much for hanging out, and thank you for 1,890 some odd subscribers. Really appreciate you guys taking time out of your lives to hang out with us. If you don't mind liking the video, possibly even subscribing, maybe even sharing the show with a friend, it really does help support the channel, and we really appreciate it. I mean, we got mouths to feed around here, so what else are we going to do other than just ask you to let us monetize your attention spans? You should just do that for us. Anyway, Oklahoma. So before we get into your comments, I want to kind of talk about some of the stuff that's going on with Oklahoma. Now, everybody's talking about, when you talk about Oklahoma, like they talk about John Mateer, this new quarterback that they've got coming in. What I don't really hear a lot of people talking about is the fact, actually, I shouldn't say that I don't hear people talking about this. I have heard people talk about this. It might also be that I don't hear people talking about this because I don't really listen to Oklahoma channels. But Ben Arbuckle from Washington State came over with John Mateer as offensive coordinator. So that's kind of a big deal for them. You know, a lot of people talk about John Mateer being this good quarterback, and he was. He threw for 3,000 some odd yards in 2024. He had something like 30 some odd touchdowns. I can't remember off the top of my head, but he's a good quarterback for sure. Obviously, Ben Arbuckle doing some good things as far as his offenses go as well. What I wanted to understand with John Mateer, though, is because it's Washington State, and so you hear about these quarterbacks transferring a lot and whatnot, and are they any good? And his stats are very good. He is a good quarterback for sure. But then I wanted to see, like, okay, so what are we talking in terms of Washington State's 2024 schedule? Like, where did they end up? What does it look like? And you can't really see it very well here. I'll move that up for you. There we go. Well, they finished the season 8-5, and I'm not gonna hate on that because so did Michigan. But there's kind of a glaring difference between Michigan and Washington State's schedules from 2024. That being that Michigan's was way more difficult. Okay, I don't see an Alabama on here. I don't see an Ohio State. I don't see a top 10 ranked Indiana, frankly. What I do see, though, is a blowout loss to Boise State. I see a loss to Washington. Not going to hate on that. Michigan lost to them, too. I see them put 70 points up. That's really good against Portland State. Oh, well. I see a loss to Wyoming, in which they only scored 14 points. A loss to Oregon State. They scored 38 and then 35 against New Mexico. But again, Wyoming, Oregon State, New Mexico, Utah State. They got 29 on San Diego State. 42 points against Hawaii. 25 points against Fresno State. And not going to hate too much on that Fresno State result because how many did Michigan end up scoring on them? I can't remember off the top of my head, but it definitely wasn't. Yeah, okay, so 30 points. So not going to hate, but it is what it is. Washington State's schedule was not all that good. They didn't necessarily go up against the defenses that Oklahoma is going to be seeing in 2025. Let me pull up Oklahoma's 2025 schedule real quick. First off, Illinois State, that'll be fine for them. Michigan, though, they're not going to see, or he hasn't seen a defense like what he's going to see from Michigan. So John Mateer might be a really good quarterback, but this is going to be a different type of outing for him. And it's the second game of the year, and they don't exactly have a good warm-up against Illinois. Well, they have a warm-up against Illinois State for sure, but is there going to be enough there to challenge John Mateer to get him ready properly for Michigan? I don't know. I'm not really convinced. So that's kind of what I'm seeing from their schedule last year. I don't like their schedule. And so you talk about how John Mateer is a really good quarterback. Yeah, but they didn't really play that good of a defense. Certainly not Michigan good. And Michigan's defense is coming into the season ranked in the top 5 already. So that's kind of a big deal. The other thing is that Oklahoma, I will go over to this. There we go. That way you have something to look at. Oklahoma did lose. Obviously, they lost Jackson Arnold, Nick Anderson, Jalil Farouk, and tight end Jake Roberts. The Sooners ranked 113th in total offense, 97th in scoring. Michigan had a better defense last year, and then Oklahoma also stumbled their way to a 6-7 record. They did, however, knock Alabama out of the playoffs, and then Michigan finished them off in the bowl game. So the thing is that John Mateer is a really good quarterback, and they definitely have something that can be built upon. I understand that they've also got a pretty good defensive line coming in, so that could take advantage of Michigan's lack of cohesion on the offensive line, as long as a lack of cohesion on Michigan's offensive line is actually a thing. That being said, right now, a lot of people are actually giving the quarterback battle here between Bryce Underwood and John Mateer to Michigan, even though Bryce Underwood is a true freshman. I was watching Steve Dace and Mark Rogers talking about it earlier, and they were saying, and I understand Steve Dace is a homer, whatever. I like Steve Dace. I give him a lot of crap on Twitter sometimes because following him is a lot like riding a roller coaster that goes off the rails and then comes back on the rails, and then you crash, but you actually had a lot of fun doing it, and then you crash again. And anyway, they're talking about other people who are saying that Bryce Underwood is as good as Cam Newton, or is so much like Cam Newton that honestly a lot of people would be shocked if he didn't play well this season. So the quarterback edge going to Michigan is it's an interesting matchup for sure. But we'll get to your comments here now, with a whole 48% of you saying that Oklahoma is the opponent that worries you guys the most. And honestly, I think you're right. I think they worried me the most too. So Ross Schickson 6796 says Oklahoma because that sets the tone for the whole season. It does. If Michigan beats Oklahoma, it's because a lot of different things went right. You got that offensive line cohesion. Bryce Underwood played well under pressure, and that's going to be a lot of pressure. The thing is like I mentioned, I believe it was David Pollock who said that Oklahoma's defensive line is actually going to be very good. The thing is, and Michigan's defensive line doesn't play Oklahoma's defensive line, obviously, but Michigan's got just as good, if not better, a defense to stop Oklahoma's offense as Oklahoma does Michigan's offense. So would we see a really low-scoring game? And if that's the case, does that actually benefit Michigan? Because Michigan tends to like to do the boa constrictor thing, where they kind of start a little bit slower, and then they pull away as their development, as their roster depth starts to overwhelm opponents. So that's definitely a possibility. DTK5689 has a different take, though. He says, Ohio State, because it's the first Michigan-Ohio State game I am attending. That's awesome. Congratulations, you're going to have a ton of fun. That said, my family has never witnessed a Wolverine loss in person, so I shouldn't be worried, right? There's the first time for everything, DTK. Jay Burks 4963 says Oklahoma only because it's the second game of the season. Yeah, I mean it's early. You know, it's an early matchup. Michigan opens the season against New Mexico. I can't remember. Oh, I hate doing these videos off the cuff like this sometimes. Yeah, New Mexico, just because I can't remember off the top of my head some of these details. So yeah, I mean, personally, I think that's a tougher test than Illinois State, but you know, still. Let's see. Tom Bouchard. Tom, what's up, man? Nighttime in Norman. Completely agree. I mean, it's an SEC venue now. It didn't used to be, but it's still one of those historic college football venues. They always have a good time down there in Norman. So yeah, I mean, that's going to be a difficult one. Paul Green 5713 says the question should be, what games worry Ohio State? Well, how much time you got? I mean, they play 12 opponents. I think they should be worried about all 12 of them. Let's see. Washington, Illinois, Michigan, Texas. There is actually, and I'm not saying this just because I'm a Michigan homer. I totally am. But if Ohio State does have the quarterback issues that are being rumored, are they going 8-5, 8-4 in the regular season? Oh, that means they lose their bowl game. Ooh, well, that would be interesting. The Ruler 13R8W. Okay. Washington has always been built like a Big Ten team. Look at last year. Our defense was gelling, but we couldn't stop them. Our defense, well, it's difficult to tell because I think Matthew Hackett here makes this point. Our defense shut them down. It was the offense that lost us the Washington game. We went down 14-0 because Orji couldn't move the ball. Yeah, well, you know, Orji couldn't move the ball, and then neither could Jack Tuttle. I mean, Jack Tuttle did at first, but then we had a couple of turnovers late in the game, and Washington was able to run away with it. Well, not run away with it, but they won it at that point. So, you know, can you necessarily say that our defense was shutting down Washington? It's possible. It's just difficult when your identity is built on complementary football and the offense isn't holding up their end of the bargain. John Maddox says, I don't know why Nebraska is not on this list. I don't know either. It might be because I couldn't fit them. Yeah, I guess we'll just go ahead and fire our social media intern. So that's me. I posted this. Nebraska probably should be on this list, but in my humble opinion, I think USC and Washington are just as good, if not better, than Nebraska. But, you know, that could easily change. I mean, Nebraska has everything that they need to be, you know, a quietly good team this year. I mean, they've got the coach, and they're throwing everything on this game, and their quarterback is more experienced. Yeah, their quarterback is more experienced. Does he necessarily have the upside of Bryce Underwood? I mean, guys, some of the things we're hearing about Bryce Underwood just feel like they're too good to be true. And so that's exactly how we should probably treat them coming into the season. Now, obviously, it's college football. You can fantasize a little bit. I mean, it's not like it's going to ruin your life if Bryce Underwood happens to not be all that good. I don't think that's going to occur by any means. But Dylan Raiola is a good quarterback. I just think that you have more upside with Bryce Underwood. And frankly, I think that you've got more starting power with Bryce Underwood than you do Dylan Raiola, potentially by this point in the season. If Michigan is playing complementary football and Bryce Underwood has his feet under him coming into this game, there's a chance that it's not close. But I understand that Nebraska is trying to throw everything they've got at this particular game because they're, well, frankly, I mean, if Michigan is the one good team or the one good program that's within reach of them beating, then they're going to want to take that opportunity, although they had an opportunity at beating Ohio State last year and it didn't happen for them. So we'll see. Dougie Fresh 195 says Oklahoma because how we play against them will set the tone for the rest of the season. #go blue. I agree, but actually, Dad just wants to have fun. Here says, to be fair, getting crushed by Texas early last year didn't set the tone for the whole year. Look how it ended. So both of you make decent points. What I will say, though, is Dad just wants to have fun. We got blown out by Texas and then followed that up through the rest of the season with losses against Illinois, Indiana, Washington. So, I mean, it kind of did sort of set the tone until we hit that Northwestern game and we figured something out and started playing some backyard brawl kind of football. I'll grab a couple more here. Wow. Thank you guys for all of your comments here. This is awesome. Claytonem Boy 8834, sorry for that. Oklahoma. If Bryce is the starter, I don't care how good he is. He doesn't know what he doesn't know, and he'll make some mistakes that cost us the game. It's entirely possible. Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, he is a true freshman, so he doesn't have the experience. Alex Ill 0330 OU, because those top 25 road games are always tough, especially early in the season. Yes, that's correct. I mean, just the fact that it's a road game period. I mean, even if Oklahoma wasn't ranked in the top 25, which I think preseason rankings are stupid anyway, but even if not, it's Norman, Oklahoma. It's going to be a tough game. Derek Bell, he's also calling Oklahoma for the same reasons. I have no idea what NOTA means. So if somebody could explain that to me, that would be awesome. Where am I at? 15 minutes? OU isn't a conference. George Ellis 672 says OU isn't a conference game. Michigan's best chance of going to the playoff is winning the Big Ten. Yeah, so I've said this before too, and I'll make this. Actually, I'm going to take Jake Monteo's his comment last, and then we'll call it. I've made this point too that actually, I mean, Michigan could lose the Oklahoma game. Now it shouldn't be a blowout. If it's a blowout, then we've got other problems. But Michigan can absolutely lose the Oklahoma game and still go to the playoffs and frankly still win the playoffs. I'm not expecting them to win the playoffs. I'm just saying that it is a thing that would still be in front of them. I mean, Ohio State went to the playoffs with a 10-2 record. That's ridiculous. No conference championship. The only reason they got to the playoffs was because the playoff committee bailed them out with an expanded playoff. Now, they did phenomenally well in that playoff. So before the Buckeye fans come at me, you did what you were asked to, and you did it very well. No hate. You guys won the Natty fair and square. It was a great playoff run, one of those historic playoff runs possibly, but you know, you can't say it was the greatest playoff run ever because it was also the only one that was that long. I don't know. In any case, but I don't think that Ohio State should have been in the playoff because the playoff is too big. The playoff needs to be shrunk, but it doesn't matter. So now we've got an opportunity with Michigan. If they lose to Oklahoma, it doesn't matter, which just goes along to my point of the regular season being cheapened by the college football playoff. So it is what it is. But yeah, I mean, Michigan can absolutely make the playoff even if they do lose to Oklahoma early. And then we'll follow things up with, do I have it there? There we go. Oh man, it's cut off. Let's see, I'll do this. Yep, so you'll have black screen on the right side of your screen for this last comment. Jake Montejo, 3272, apologize if I didn't pronounce that correctly, Jake. He says, Oklahoma, unfamiliar, hostile territory against a crafty veteran QB that's going to play in the league. The rest are all starting new QBs who are sus, and it can go either way. They will be battle tested for that Ohio game, and it's at home, not an easy game, but Ohio's QB isn't better than what they had last year. Yeah, and there's an argument to be made that potentially might actually take a step back at the QB position. Now, in the future, I think Julian Sang is probably going to get a handle on that position, and he'll be just fine. He'll be another one of the great Ohio State quarterbacks, which obviously is a very long line. But that being said, I do think that Ohio State this year is probably not as good as they were last year. And with the game at Michigan, I think that even though Bryce Underwood is a true freshman, I do think that at that point in the season, Michigan is going to be humming on all cylinders because, again, Bryce Underwood doesn't actually even need to be good or great. He just needs to be serviceable for Michigan to get through the season 12-0 potentially, or 11-1, depending on how Oklahoma goes. All the rest of the games that Michigan is playing this season can be won with solid defense and a serviceable offense. Now, you don't want it to always be serviceable, and by serviceable, I mean that they're playing complementary football, that they're holding their end of the bargain up more often than not. If they're not doing that, that's not complementary football. They could drop a couple of games here or there, especially against Oklahoma, possibly even against Ohio State, depending on how their quarterback situation and, frankly, their offensive line situation goes too. But I'm with Jake here. I think Oklahoma, I'm with the rest of you, frankly. Oklahoma, I think, is the biggest test on the schedule, especially with it being week 2. Really good quarterback, even though I don't really respect the I shouldn't say don't respect. I don't really think that he played that tough of a schedule last year, and they still ended up going 8-5. Clearly it wasn't, exactly the offense's fault in all respects, but there is something to be said for that. That being said, I'd love to know your thoughts on this. Do the rest of you think that Oklahoma, those of you who didn't see this post, do you think that Oklahoma is the toughest game on the schedule? If not, who do you think is the toughest game on the schedule? Would you like me to break down other games on Michigan's schedule? Just let me know who in the comments section. Don't forget, we go live every Wednesday at 8:30 p.m. Eastern time, so come and join us in the chat, and we will catch you in the next video.